did was God came on for a short time, but a good time for a woman that was on maternity leave, and I just was going to do the maternity leave thing, and I wound up that was 9 years ago. So it was a good fit for me. I'm from Eastern Plains of Colorado, Western Kansas. My folks did wheat and sheep when I was a girl, but I'm old enough that when my father started making decisions about what he was going to do with his farm, it was all between he and his brother. It wasn't anything about his children. And particularly since we were all girls, it really wasn't anything. And we were in our teenage years. If you could turn back the hands of time, because there's a lot of wheat land in Kansas that we had at the time, but it's not ours anymore. So we're going to shift here a little bit. If nobody wants to get up, go part of your thing, we'll go right into our next section. Okay? All right. So today, what I want to do, talk a little bit about, I don't know how you get the PowerPoints up, but you'll do that for me, right?
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got the.
Oh, I don't think to do that. This
I'll
one.
do it, whatever.
Okay. All right. So the Colorado Agribility Project is an interesting program that's in 21 states that we've had for Colorado, in Colorado for 24 consecutive years. That's a pretty big thing for us to be proud of, that we've kept a grant in our state for so long, and we are moving forward with a new application and hope that we'll get refunded for another 4 years. It's a collaboration. I hope I'm doing this correctly. It's a collaboration between Colorado State Extension. This is kind of why we're here with CSU, Goodwill Colorado, and we have our Colorado Department of Ag symbol up there as well as a partnership that we're having this particular year. So it's a very competitive grant that we apply for, and in that process, you have to have the land grant college, that's CSU, has to apply for the grant, and they have to find a disability nonprofit to work in collaboration with, and that's the Goodwill Colorado component. So if I figure this out, I'm not going either.
I don't know why.
And from one presentation to the next, it doesn't want to do that. It's kind of snotty.
Yeah, I suppose so. No.
Last time, what did we do? Voodoo or something? You know what's really amazing is how white my hair is getting. So Mary, I didn't notice that. I just looked at this. Holy cow! Time to go get it colored. Okay.
We'll give us a second here.
You got tap yes right there. Technical difficulties. Okay, so this is my little background. It's supposed to be hilarious. Thank you. I kind of shared, basically we've gone over that. So Agribility started, a lot of people don't understand this, out of the Farm Bill. And people, what is the Farm Bill? Well, Farm Bill in our agricultural community is very, very important, and it's very, very big. And I don't know if people understand that actually most of our monies come out of commodities, come out of the food stamps. That's where the funding stream comes from. And when people say, well, why would agriculture folks be involved in that food stamp? And it's not called food stamp anymore, it's called SNAP nowadays, in that process. Well, when you start working with all those yucky mucks in Washington, a lot of the people come from very large inner city states. And then you have these rural states. And what you have to do is you have to kind of come up with something that both everybody wants. So those heavily populated inner big city places want those commodities. They want those kinds of benefits and those type of opportunities. So they do a collaboration. And a lot of people don't understand that's actually where some of the Farm Bill comes out of. It's amazing to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this right. So it first started in 1990 in the Farm Bill, and the first state in 91. I believe that was actually Tennessee or Indiana was one of the first ones that got it. The competitive nature of that is who has the grant does change a great deal for most of the states, and their makeup of their staff is quite unique. I spoke of that a little bit earlier, between some programs that have engineers and some staff who have occupational therapy staff on it. They're really quite unique wherever you go. We just learned last week that there's 14 grants available in 17 states who applied. So there's some of us that are going to be out of luck. So hopefully it's not Colorado. Did I Jim's issue yet? Yep.
Nope, next one.
Okay. All right, so you guys got a chance, most of you got a chance to meet Dr. Dahlstead this morning as part of our co-director. Someone who's not here today is Dr. Robert Fetch. Dr. Robert Fetch is really instrumental for having the AgriGoLity project for all these years. He's always been the writer of the grants and worked hard with the universities and extension to keep our program going. Dr. Rebecca Hill is our future. She will be replacing Dr. Dahlstead if the new grant is approved, which gives us an opportunity. She's also in the economic field, ag economics, and she, in the grant, wrote up some pretty interesting issues and things for us to think about around how our project impacts the farmers and ranchers, particularly economically, that she's kind of be studying in the future. Myself, some people ask me, what does VRT stand for? That's a vision rehabilitation therapist. My background and training was in the field of vision rehabilitation. And for the first 35 years, I worked with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, either in blind services or general services. I did that for a really long time before coming to this project. Dr. Craig, which you've met and will be speaking with me. Chad, you've met. And then someone who's not here today is we have a doctoral student from Creighton working on her capstone. Her name is Brittany Smith, soon to be Dr. Brittany Smith, who will be finishing up her capstone. We've never had a capstone student before too, so she's been a great asset to us and we greatly appreciate her. So this particular photo has got kind of two different scenarios that it shows here, that we've got our ranching kind of components and our farming kind of components. And the basic thing about both of those is they are dangerous as heck to be working in. They're very dangerous field. The occupational field for ag work is very high. So we kind of want to look a little bit at these two photos of what they might present.
All righty, thank you. Well, maybe you do.
I hit it.
I did it. Yeah, well, wait a minute. There we go. Good, yeah. All right, well, as Candy was saying, farming and ranching are among the most dangerous occupations in America. And that actually surprises a lot of people. When I talk to folks about injury and illness on the farm and ranch, and I compare it with firemen, for example, I compare it with loggers in the logging industry, or fishermen like the crab fishermen, for example. Those are all dangerous occupations. But people think about, well, how can farming be as dangerous as being a fireman or being in the military? And yet it is, because when you're in farming, you're usually remote, usually by yourself. You may take off in the morning and you may tell the wife, okay, I'll be back around whatever time it is. But that's usually going to be late at night, depending on what time of season, what time of the year it is. And if something happens during those interim times, nobody may know about it until it's time to go check on Dad and see if he's back in off the farm yet. And so you're out there by yourself, you're rural and remote, you're around very dangerous things. A combine is, although it may not shoot cannons, but a combine's about as dangerous as a tank. It's got, things that are going to roll over you, crush you, push you in the ground. Dr. Dahlstead, I don't remember what Nora mentioned or not. Yeah, I didn't think, as an example, Dr. Dahlstead, his brother was killed just a few years ago, not far from here, when they were hooking up some equipment and moving some equipment around, and one of the heads fell and crushed him. Just right there, they were all just standing there. So it is a very, very dangerous occupation. And as we age, and as we have these repetitive wear and tear things taking place to our body, it becomes more dangerous because we're not as agile, we're not as fast. The average farmer rancher out there is in that 60-year range, 58, depending on whose studies you want to listen to, but it's all dangerous work. And secondary injury often happens where you have a a bad knee from maybe you took a fall or took a jump off of something, wrenched your knee a little bit. Now you're favoring that knee and then you're putting more pressure on the other knee. And you get these secondary injuries and failures that take place. So it is a very dangerous occupation. And you see here, suicide is very high up there. And again, Chad spoke to that. But again, this farming and ranching is rural, remote, isolated. And there's so many things you can't control. You can't control commodity prices and tariffs and weather and, the list goes on. So it gets, you're really gonna have some problems. Animal incidents, the two biggest, suicides in there now, but for many years, animal incidents or tractor incidents have been the leading cause. It's hard to say which, but tractor rollovers are a case. A lot of folks are out there operating old tractors because new tractors are expensive. So they're operating old tractors. A lot of times in those days, they didn't have rollover protection required. Rollover protection now is a big saver of people's bodies and lives. But on these older tractors, which a lot of farmers are still using, they don't have rollover protection on it. Now, there's a guy there that could probably add one for you. So at any rate, let's talk about the suicide quick. Ted probably discussed that, but our suicide rate in Colorado is right up there. We're roughly fifth in the nation on suicide rate. And those are most recent statistics that we have right now. So what's our goal? Well, our goal, of course, in AgriAbility is to be an assistant for you folks, to help you out, to be there, to listen to problems you may have. And if you have some disabilities or things that are causing you to have struggles with your farming and ranching, we're hopefully there to provide some ideas and some recommendations and help connect you with resources that make it easier for you to do your job. In addition to having farmers and ranchers, we also have quite a number of folks that are coming on. A lot of these are the veterans that I talked about before, but not all. But they're younger folk that are now thinking about wanting to get in farming or ranching. A lot of veterans getting out of the military are actually looking toward that, even though they never had that background for reasons probably I talked about before. So we work with people who are in farming or ranching, people who would like to be in farming or ranching, or farm employees or family members of farmers. So those are all people that we would have some ability to work with. Yeah, I don't know what that's trying to tell me. Oh, is that, yeah. It's this slide that never comes in easy. I'm just gonna get it all the way in.
There you go.
Yeah, because it doesn't play nice. Yeah. There we go. Got through all that, I think. So there's four things that we're charged with in the grant. As Candy said, our work is based largely on a grant, and then we have some other funds that sometimes we get from different places. But our major grant, the one that creates AgriAbility, is a NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, part of U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's where the money comes to start the AgriAbility program or to annually fund much of what we do. So education, that's what we're doing here today. Education. We deliver winter workshops all across the state. AgriAbility is comprised of very few people. They're out of Candy and I are basically, and now with Chad, we're the ones basically are on the road for most of the time. We cover this entire state. We could be in Julesburg today and we could be in Cortez tomorrow. And I mean, literally, that could happen, sometimes does. So we're here to give education to producers, farmers, ranchers, but also professional people, because professional people also interface with our farmers and ranchers. If a farmer or rancher is having a problem and they're having a physical or a behavioral disability or combination comorbidity that's causing them a problem on the farm or ranch, and they need some assistance and they don't have resources, then they may be in contact with AgriAbility, and then we're going to put them in contact in some cases with one of y'all that are professionals that are going to deal with farmers and ranchers. Networking. Sometimes it's hard to decide what we're doing, education or networking, because we're doing both. If we're educating, we're also talking with you folks. And so we're networking, let people know who and what we are. I think the thing that Candy and I most is we like the direct assistance. You know, it's our opportunity to get out of the city because, yeah, we're stuck in Denver. But it's our chance to get out on the farms and ranch. So, you know, we're a unique program in that regard. Probably very few programs, and I can't even think of one right now, except maybe somebody doing some on-farm tractor repair or something like that. But most people don't visit you on your farm or ranch. If you want services, you got to go to town. If you want a professional, you got to go to town. Well, Candy and I come to you. That's what we do. And the reason we do that is we cannot imagine what your life as a farmer or rancher is like. I mean, we can imagine it, but we don't know what it's like because everybody farms or ranches differently. So unless we actually get out on your farm, on your ranch, we actually go out and spend some hours out there. It helps us learn how you ranch, how you approach things, and therefore what needs you may have. So our project staff, Candy, myself, Chad, we're going to provide free, no cost to you on-farm visits. And we make assessments. Assessments meaning we go out and spend that time we talked about and look at what is causing you a problem and then try to source out an idea or a product or a tool or something that will help you do the task that you're unable to do now, or to be able to do it with less pain or do it more easily or faster. We're going to recommend these kinds of farm equipment and adaptations of equipment. And a little later, we'll actually probably show you a few of these things. These are low end items, but very handy, and they're adaptive equipment. We'll provide other information, resources, talk about service providers. And we're going to talk to you about how to accommodate your disabilities, how to get by and get that task done that we all know you're going to do. Because that's the other thing that a lot of professionals don't know. And, you know, Candy brought that thing up, I think, about 5 things to talk to your doctor about. If a doctor is not familiar with farm and ranch work, you may get that typical thing, oh, you hurt a lot. Well, you're working too hard. Take 5 days off. Duh, I can't do that. You know, they don't get that. So, you know, we that are going to try to help you learn how to accommodate that. There have even been times where we've talked with the medical professionals. So on behalf of, we're here as advocates also. So there's things that we can do to help advocate for you, as well as help you figure out how to do some of these things, these chores. Help you maintain your rural lifestyle. I think there have been several things that have happened to me on this job that are maybe as rewarding or more rewarding than anything else I've ever had. I had a client just a few years ago. I think he was late 60s, early 70s, don't remember for sure exactly, but in that range. But the bottom line of what it was he had reached a point. He was a cattleman, not a large operator, but he sole operator. But he'd been in cattle for many years. And he had just reached a point with some physical injuries and with some medical injuries, some heart issues and things where he just knew he was done. And we ended up being in contact with him, ended up spending some time. He was a veteran also, and I was able to get some of the veterans dollars that I was able to get from time to time. At any rate, ended up getting him some cattle handling equipment. And when that was done, he walked up to me and said, you know what? You just gave me 10 more years on my farm. That was why we do this, but what can't think that. Anyway, that's what I do it.
I do it for the snack.
But that's the kind of thing that we get. And that, you know, that's very rewarding to me when I have somebody who literally says, you just gave me 10 more years on my ranch. It's a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Okay,
All right.
you're up.
We're trying to flip back.
Yeah, there.
Today. So who's eligible for a program? So that's pretty easy, you would think. But you know, this is what I learned. A lot of people who think they know what agribility is do not know what agribility is. And so it's very important sometimes to just keep trying to share with people. Most of us have so much information in our head and so many things we have to remember, so many responsibilities if you're a professional in the helping service field, that sometimes you just can't keep it all in there. So I want to kind of just go over that, even though I know a lot of people in here may have heard that before. So who's eligible? You have to be a farmer or rancher who must be involved in production agriculture. So what is production agriculture? The government gives us a definition for that, and it says that you must either have the ability or have earned at least $1,000 of product in that year, in a year's time. That's a super low benchmark. You know, anyone who's in agriculture, if you sold one cow, you might make that benchmark. However, that benchmark is based by USDA and NIFA on all the agricultural pursuits that people have, from people who are into orchards and apiary and fishing and all those different things that come. And then what they find is that there's a lot of people that only actually make money about 1 out of every 4 years. So they kind of came up with this little benchmark that's pretty low, but that's why they do it to extend to all people who are engaged in agriculture. The other thing for us, besides someone that is a farmer rancher who must be in production agriculture, is that they have to have a disability or a limitation. So we're not working with folks that don't identify as that. And is that a hard thing to identify? Because I bet you right now, if I said in this room, who in this room has a disability, you're all going to stand up and hold your hand up. However, sometimes we need to explain a little bit more what disability or limitation is. The agricultural community is similar to the veteran community in the fact that they're not very forthcoming when it comes to what they can't do. They're very forthcoming in their abilities to solve problems, move forward, keep working, but they're not too much into what they can't do. They're not too much into asking help. They're very much into giving help. So it's a tough crowd. A lot of times the person who gets me to the table may be the woman in the household, the wife, the daughter, something like that. I see a wife and a daughter here that's gotten me at their family farms. So I just will point to you that get you to that family farm and let someone speak. I once was told, a grumpy old man in Yuma said to me, the only reason I was there, the only reason he let me into his house was because his wife said he couldn't have any pie unless he tried. That is a true story. After I heard that, you kind of try to pull your composure together. The pie did look good, I'm just saying. But we then got a chance to really get to know each other. I got kind of a benchmark, I guess, for him. But we had a really good session, and there was some really neat happening. And his issue was hearing loss. He couldn't hear anymore, and he was dangerous as all get out on his equipment. He almost had run over a grandchild. No, people couldn't hear him when he was backing up and stuff like that. So it was all, and the TV was so loud in the house that the wife was starting to lose her mind. That was a limitation. It wasn't something that somebody would look at and say, oh, that man has a disability or a limitation. But those who knew him did, including the Farmers Union meetings that he went to, and he was on the co-op board, and he was driving everybody crazy because he couldn't hear gosh darn thing that was going on. So he was missing out a lot in his business and in his life, and his family was worried about him. And that's what we got to the table. So have a disability or a limitation. It also could be the spouse that has the disability or limitation. It doesn't have to be the owner operator. And I'm going to say that again. We work with a lot of people who work on farms. Maybe they work in a dairy, maybe they work at the stockyards, maybe they're in custom cutting, so they work for a harvest company or something like that. It doesn't have to be the owner operator. Oftentimes for us it is, but it doesn't have to be. In our next grant cycle, we're hoping to outreach a lot more to our migrant community, which is a unique community that's more mobile that we hope that we'll be able to serve. So that's kind of a new twist for us. We'll look at those as those challenges. So the spouse, it can be the children, it can be the parents. And oftentimes when I get to the table, I will find I may be speaking to the patriarch of the family, and the wife is in the kitchen. And culturally, there's a lot of old kinds of stereotypes, sometimes not so many. Women are definitely entering the field of agriculture by leaps and bounds, but you might be at the table and talking to the farmer, and a son will come through and he might stop and say, hey, or someone might introduce me. And the next thing I know, he's saying, well, well, could you help me? Or mom, does that program, they help me since, I got my hip replaced or something along that line. And so sometimes you'll start with one person and it'll lead to another, and maybe you'll have kind of a cool family affair before you're done with all these different people who maybe you've earned some cred and gotten into where they will talk to you, and have several families like that, and it's pretty cool. So that can be happening. It also can be the farm employee, as I mentioned. We have several. I've had a chance to work with a couple DDR account clients that are in that category. I forget this thing. So the eligibility of what might constitute a disability or a limitation. Again, a lot of folks don't like the word disability. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't categorize themselves as someone with a disability. So when Jim and I came on to the Agribility Project, we tried to turn that around and look at more at limitations, because our personal philosophy is the person isn't disabled, it's the task they're trying to do that's disabling. And psychologically, that sometimes is more acceptable than I am a person with a disability. But if a person who has a mobility impairment is walking straight down a road nice and smooth, and someone else without a disability can walk that too, there's no limitation there. The limitation is climbing some type of high object, getting to a piece of farm equipment, going in rough terrain. That's what makes that person have that limitation. So these are some of the things that we work with, from all kinds of things, from physical, cognitive, along the line. Amputations. This agricultural field has got a lot of amputations, and it's because they don't cover their power takeoffs. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of those kind of horror films, but if you're into it, just Google that, and you will always think about covering your power takeoff shaft after that. A lot of people will kick grain into an auger or something like that, and a boot or a pant will get caught in that, try to grab something out. There's a lot of really scary accidents. You can Google, YouTube, screen for those. But we have a lot of clients with amputations. What sometimes people don't think about is maybe something like arthritis being disabling. And if you have arthritis, you know it can be very disabling. There, of course, is rheumatoid arthritis, but also osteoarthritis. And the term I use is people who've been rode hard and put up wet, which is a horse term. But the bottom line is that you just have abused your body, and now you've got hip problems, knee problems, back problems, shoulder problems. And I got a call just last Friday, and the gentleman called, kind of the story that Jim was talking about. He's having trouble with his shoulders. He went to his doctor, and the doctor said, well, I don't think you're going to be able to continue to work cattle. And he said, well, I don't think you're going to be able to be a doctor anymore. I thought that was great. I wish I could have been there. Yeah. And the doctor kind of, what do you mean? He says, that's my life. That's what I do. That's how I pay my bills. That's how I feed my family. That's what I do. I can't just stop doing that. Can't you help me do something with my shoulders? So I hope we'll get out there, and maybe we can talk to him a little bit about some things for his shoulders. Big deal. Cancer, have several clients that are in cancer treatment. Have a new client just started with us, has pancreatic cancer, and the fatigue and the stamina issues and some of those things have been really difficult for her to continue to get her work done. Cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is going to be something that is going to be a congenital situation. But I look at that we have several clients who have dealt with their cerebral palsy or other limitations like that all through their adult life. And then as they start to get a little older, it becomes more difficult, and we may be called in at that time to help them around accommodations. Diabetes is one that people don't ever think about. Diabetes, it has a huge impact on you physically and your ability. When farmers are used to getting into their tractors or combines at first thing in the daylight, and they plan to stay there till forever now because they put big floodlights on their equipment and they can farm forever. It's not healthy for a diabetic to do something like that, to try to have some intervention regarding diabetic care, rest breaks, what to do on their bottoms, their feet, their urinary issues, all those things come into play, and we would try to address those issues as part of this program. Developmental or cognitive disabilities, multiple sclerosis. Colorado's huge in statistics for multiple sclerosis. I missed one, didn't I? Oh, and then just the aging, just getting old. That ain't easy. it should have left it for the young to handle getting old. Orthopedic injuries, lots, Parkinson's, a lot of respiratory problems. Maybe you've heard of farmer's lung. Have anyone ever heard of farmer's lung? It's a big issue. There's two things I can't get my farmers to do, and that's wear respiratory equipment, which they should, especially when they're spraying chemicals or they're in a lot of dirt, and hearing protection. Two very, very easy things to do to help them. And you would think I asked them to wear a clown suit. They have no interest whatsoever. We try to get youth to get more involved in that and maybe start to accept that, but that's a really hard thing for them to work on. But we try. We have clients with vision problems, and I mentioned the gentleman with hearing, spinal cord injuries, stroke, and traumatic brain injuries. Spinal cord injuries and strokes is where we usually get known for, and unfortunately, not long ago, a client contacted us and said, I don't know that you can help me because I was told by the extension agent you only deal with spinal cord injuries. And that's wrong, but that's what media picks up on. When media contacts us and asks us if we'd like to do a story or something, they don't want us to do a story on something they can't see. You know, they want it to catch the media. It's got to have a lot of flash. So that's where you'll see a lot of lifts. We've had some people see big lifts we put on equipment, and we've done a wonderful thing over in Yuma where we put a way to get into a grain bin where we had a complete walkway up. So there's a lot of things like that that will catch media's eye. Is that mine or yours?
That's yours.
Okay. We receive referrals from anyone. In fact, everyone in this room, please send us your referrals. We're really trying to promote folks to think about keeping AgriAbility maybe on their desk. This cool packet that we gave you, maybe put that somewhere where you can see it. Because as you do your day-to-day work, your day-to-day business, if you think there might be somebody that we can help, it's a no-cost service for us to go meet that person and talk to them about our services. So we get referrals mostly from word of mouth. So the most time that we get anyone who contacts us, they'll say, a friend of mine, you helped a friend of mine. So you work with so-and-so, Joe and Blow. That's probably 80 or 85% of our referrals come from that word of mouth, which I love. We just have to get our mouth talking because it's a great resource. It's a great testimony. So family, friends, neighbors, health providers, interestingly enough, we don't get referrals from medical providers. And we're hoping that we can maybe change that a little bit in the future. Our extension agents is also important, but if any of you are thinking, well, I think I know somebody that maybe could be helped by this program, just have them call us. Just ask them to give us a call. We'll talk about whether or not it's applicable for them and if they could benefit from it. So don't waste any brain cells trying to decide it. Just try to refer them to us, and then we'll try to get them directed to the service that would be best for them. Why does that do that? There you go. Switch.
All right. Okay, well, so what to expect? You have been advised by your friend or neighbor or something that AgriAbility could be a good fit for you. You've called up AgriAbility and said, hey, I need to know about this program. Is it something I can use? Is it helpful to me? So now you get to learn what to expect. Now, one thing that we've all said, I think, through all this afternoon is we come to you. So one of the things to expect is we're going to start to get to learn about you and learn about your needs. And what we're going to do is we're probably going to spend a lot of time on the telephone initially, maybe an hour on the phone, maybe even a little over that, and really talk about things. We want to get to understand what's going on with you. So we'll do an intake form, and we don't just do this kind of off the cuff. We both go to national training workshops put on by the National AgriAbility Project, and they train us how they would like these assessments done so that there's a standard. Everybody's doing things in the same way, and it's proven things that there have been studies done, there have been surveys conducted, there have been medical journals or agricultural journals saying this is good best practices. So what we're doing is we're following best practices. We're not just being nosy. We will ask a lot of nosy questions. but we're following best practices of how we're told to approach assessments. And this past year, actually it was last July, so just not even a year. I went to a training workshop where we were given a new assessment tool. And the old assessment tool, how many pages was that?
Well, we had a 6-page one.
Yeah, it was about a 6-page one. Now this thing has grown to
23.
like 23 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that doesn't mean we're gonna go through all of it, because some of the pages are very specific ag things. If you're not a sheep person, we skip the whole sheep section, for example, so. But we do have clients that actually do a little sheep, a little cattle, a little crops, so they get it all. You know, they get the whole 23 pages. But at any rate, we're gonna spend time talking with you on the phone so we understand what the issues are. And, you know, Ken and I both come from farm and ranch country. We both understand how these things work, but we don't know how you work. Everybody farms, everybody ranches differently.
If you met one farmer, you met one farmer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's
I mean,
same
just-
with disabilities. If you
yeah.
met one person with multiple sclerosis, then you got one person with multiple sclerosis. It's
Right.
just- We need to learn the whole person.
Yeah.
We need-
And we can't make decisions, and you wouldn't trust us very much if we made some. I mean, one of the things that's come up with me, and I think maybe Candy, kind of often with my cattle people is you'd think as an outsider, maybe a city person, looking at this ranch, and here's all this land, and here's all these cows out wandering around, that a good way to keep cows from running away from home, besides having the fence, would be having a gate. Now, the problem is if you have a gate and you have disabilities, you can't get in and out of your truck very well. What do you do about the gate? Well, right off, you might say, well, you put in a cattle guard. Well, I don't either believe it or not, a lot of ranchers would not agree with that. They hate cattle guards. If you say put in a cattle guard, they'll throw you off the ranch. They don't like cattle guards because they think livestock are going to be injured in the cattle guard. And so we get all that. But that's why I say we can't make assumptions how you farm or ranch. Every farmer or rancher has their own procedure, has the things that they believe are correct. And it's not up to us to tell them it's not correct. It's up to us to adapt what we're doing to the way you farm or ranch. So we're going to start with a letter and a survey. And I know everybody hates surveys, but they're really important. And I think the biggest thing that is important about surveys is we get our money from the federal government, sometimes from state government, like the Department of Agriculture. But all of those agencies want to know, are we wasting this money? What is this money doing for us? The only real way that we know that so that we can report it, because at the end of a grant period, we have, you know, she does it because she's the manager. But at the end of a grant period, she has to do a huge report that says, here's what we did, here's why we did it. And that's what we get from surveys. So we're going to send a survey. And these aren't long, these are a couple of pages of questions that seek to find out, you know, on the quality of life pre-survey. Before we ever get out to you, we're going to do a small survey so we know where you are today. And so you're going to answer questions about, I don't feel very good about how I'm farming now, you know, farming is doing this or that, whatever it might be. You're going to answer these questions and we're going to help you understand the survey and then do it. But then we're going to go ahead and do the service, and maybe years down the road, because it could be several years down the road before we finish everything we're doing with you, then there'll be another survey we'll do at the end of it. And comparing those two surveys is where we get the statistics to say, here's how effective our program is. And I don't have the numbers in my head right now, and I probably should have thought to do that. But Dr. Robert Fetch, who is not here today, is the one that does most of our surveys. And the percentages are tremendous. We look at it, it's like 87% of people who do the pre-survey get help with agribility and do the post-survey. 87% say that their farming is easier, safer, et cetera. So, and their quality of life is better. They're feeling better about themselves and how they farm. So these are important things for us to pay attention to. Okay, we're going to do an in-person farm or ranch visit. And we're gonna do whatever it takes to do that. I've been on a couple of ranches that the only way you could get to a thing was on horseback, so I jumped on a horse and gone back there with the ranger.
I have not done that.
Well, I'll send you out to a place where you'll do
I would rather have done that
that.
than some of the things I've done. Darn. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't even get there with a four-wheeler, you literally had to do it on
Did not
horseback,
know
so.
that. Okay.
So I'm not above getting on a horse and doing it. Sometimes we get on a four-wheeler out there to do it, just depends. Most of the time, it's not that dramatic. Most of the time, we get in a pickup truck or something, drive around and see what we need to see. But if we have to do something more, we're gonna get it done, whatever it takes to find out what's going on. So when we get done with the assessment, and this assessment is gonna take several hours of your life. We're gonna get out there, and the more things you have to see, the more operations you have, the longer that we'll be there. But we're literally going to go around with you so that we can understand how you do a particular thing. We can't make recommendations to you that says, okay, here's a tool that's gonna help you do that job, if we don't know what the task is and what the limitation is that's preventing you from doing that task. So we have to be aware of these things. We have to see it. So we will likely, if you operate a combine, then that's part of your normal farming practice, because you growing crops that require a combine, we're going to ask you, show me how you get in that combine. If you've got a tractor, we're gonna say, show me how you get in that tractor. If you're lambing, we're gonna say, where do you lamb? And how do you oversee that area, make sure that the lambing process is taking place and you're not losing a lamb or losing a mom or whatever. We need to know how those things all work. Whatever your operation is, we need to see that. Once we've done that, and we've spent several hours on your farm ranch, Candy and I will go back to the office and we'll write a thorough report. These can take time. Some of our reports have hit 30, 40 pages. Now that's with a lot of attachments and things, but we'll do whatever it is that has to be done to explain, so that when somebody can look at it and say, here's a task this rancher has, here's the limitation that caused them to be unable to do it, here's a recommendation we have for tools or equipment that will help the person do it, or we may make recommendations. I actually am working on a report right now where I've got an individual with an amputation, and I can't give him orthotics, but I'm making a recommendation to DVR that he be given orthotics consult, because he needs orthotics on that hand. So we're gonna do whatever it takes to get you where you need to be. on your
That was a
farm.
bailing accident, wasn't it?
What's that?
Was that a bailing
It was a
accident?
bailing accident. Yep,
Okay.
it was. Okay. So we're gonna give you a letter that gives your ideas, talks about all your needs, priorities and everything. And then we're gonna follow through and keep in contact with the client. Now, we do work really closely with DVR. And DVR is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, for those of you that weren't aware of that. But we work really closely with them, because one of the things that DVR does is they help people get employed or stay employed. And if you're self-employed, they help people that have a problem with having resources to maintain that self-employment. So we may then bring in DVR by having you. We can't do this. We can call DVR and say, hey, we're going to refer somebody, but you have to want to do it. And so we will recommend you contact DVR. We will give you Taryn's phone number, if it's Taryn, address and whatever, and say, hey, we're going to recommend that this couple, this person, whatever it might be, talk to you and seek out your services. And then it will be up to you to do that. But once that's done and you sign a release of information, then we're going to work collaboratively among all the DVR, us and you, to make sure everybody understands your limitations, needs, and gets you on your way. Okay, so what can Colorado Agribuilding Project do for you? Well, we've talked about all those things. We can hopefully keep you, in fact, most of the time, we can keep you farming or ranching longer. We can make it so that you're not as beat up at the end of the day, so you don't hurt as much, so you're not in danger or as much risk. And if you're professional, we can just help collaborate between all of us to get a better outcome for our respective client.
That's you.
That's me still? Okay, good. Yeah, all right. Okay, oh, yes, it is. Successful outcome. So what do we consider a successful outcome? Well, obviously, if you're coming to us with limitations on work tasks that you cannot perform, a good outcome would be that you're now able to do this task, or sometimes in the process, we actually arrive collaboratively at a new task or a different task that gets the same thing done or done in a different way. So maybe you're going to learn a new task. Whatever it is, your increased ability to do that is an outcome. Okay, we talked before about this potential for secondary injury. When people are injured, whatever the injury cause is, whether it's traumatic or repetitive motion or age, there is a tendency then to end up having a lot of, well, not a lot, but certainly an increased incidence of injury, because you don't have as good muscle control, your balance isn't as good, your lower legs, your ankles, whatever it may be, knees are somewhat unstable. So we'll have a decrease in injury or illness, and then an increased independence at your home, on your ranch, at your farm, in your community. So you get around better, you maintain social contact with people, and which helps you eliminate the problems that we'd have to call Chad for. So, right, yep.
Earlier I misspoke. I made a comment that we don't get any referrals from medical people, and that was wrong.
Yeah.
Because where we do get referrals from is Craig Hospital.
Yes.
So that's probably, about 8 to 10 a year we'll get from Craig Hospital. Not all of those are Colorado citizens, so some of it is just a consult where we can go and talk to them and get a connection for them in their respective home state if they have an agri-ability project. Or the national project does some outreach to people who don't have programs or projects. In fact, their national program is really working on actually coming up with a whole position back in Indiana that would handle those states that don't have coverage. So I did misspeak on that, and we do get a lot of referrals. So, okay, I'm not going to do that because we already talked about this. Is upcoming workshops. You're in one. We have 3 more. So, like, if you know somebody who's in either Flagler or Lamar or Pueblo, we'd love for them to attend one of our workshops. So this part is assistive technology. Hopefully I will go through this okay. This was some of our intern was going to do some of this, so I'm going to cover what she was going to do today. But it's not fair because I already gave you the darn slide. But what is assistive technology? You can read it. Okay, go ahead, read it, class. Any device, modification, or service that will help the farmer with a disability live, work, or learn more independently. That's a big, broad brush. And if you're a good creative writer, you can come up with a lot of stuff that falls under that particular nomenclature. You really can. And I think that's one of the things that we hopefully help a client, and we help other services that we coordinate with be able to come up with how something is assistive technology, hopefully in a positive way. So when you look at this picture, it's kind of hard to see a little bit because of the lighting. Can anyone see the assistive technology on this tractor?
The chairlift.
Yeah, right there. It's a simple boom that's put on, that's got a chairlift. So someone who's having difficulty climbing, that's a small tractor, but climbing up the steps into the tractor, this little boom, this little lift can be put on a tractor and make it so someone can get up and get down. They're going to make the transfer. Hopefully, that's one of the things we would assess, if they can easily make the transfer from platform then to get into the seat and back out. That's part of our assessment piece. But how much do you think a little thing like that might cost? And DVR can't answer this because they've bought it for us, or for clients. How much do you think that little wacky woods thing, just that silly boom, put on the side of a tractor, which, by the way, completely avoids the tractor, so you don't want, because it's screwed onto there, it's bolted onto. How much do you think something like that might cost? $10,000. Okay, that's a good estimate. Anybody else got another guess? How much do you think you can make it for, Dave?
Probably a couple thousand.
So that is an interesting dichotomy, because the $10,000 is closest to. We have a couple companies that make these, so you can buy them, and they of course have all the insurance and all the backing and all that, all the proven stuff. There's 2 basic companies, but that can cost probably between $5,000 and $7,000. Life essentials, is that what they're called now? Like, it's not life essentials anymore.
It's life lifts.
Life lifts might be as much as 10. It kind of depends on a few things. And most of the time when I meet farmers and ranchers, they say, I can make that thing. And they can. So we want to look at what can be made, but there are some issues regarding safety. And Jim and I are not fabricators or engineers. So we look to others to help with fabrication and engineering. And then that becomes a relationship between the client and that service provider, not us. Now, Jim's, like I said, the world's most interesting man. And he probably could do that, but I'm not getting in that at all. I really need to look for other sources. But a lot of people have made these kinds of things themselves and done a good job. The story I tell about this that's kind of scary, is I went to a wonderful place over in Ignacio, Colorado, with a young man who had a high spinal cord break. And when I went to him, he had lots of high profile equipment. He not only farmed and ranched, but he also was a excavator. So he had excavating equipment as another job that he did. And he wanted to show me how he was getting his excavating equipment when I'm on the farm. And so what he showed me is, you all know what a Hoyer lift is? Kind of a lifted hospital that might help somebody get out of bed or something like that. He had one of those that helps him get out of bed, but he'd taken and put it in the closet and he kind of messed around with it. And what he'd done then is he had a 4-year-old son that he put on the bottom of that Hoyer lift. He made the transfer into the lift. The 4-year-old son lifted that up to the sky, stopped, took a big stick and like a human piñata, got him swinging until he could grab a not very high functioning arm around a piece of the equipment so that he could pull himself in and make the transfer in the cab. And then we did the reverse getting out.
So like we said, a lot of times the doctor would look at that and say, well, you can't get that equipment anymore. But, you know, we know farmers,
Now, they
we
get
found
in
a way
it.
to get in.
They get in it and they do it. So after looking at that, and I will assure you that by training from National Project, I didn't say something like, holy mother of God. On the inside, I probably was, and I'm pretty transparent, so it's on this whole face. But what I said was, wow, that is really creative. I am so impressed, and it's obvious you really want to work. You know, you really want to get back to doing what you were doing. So I wonder if we could would you be interested if I could show some little maybe safer ways to do this? And you know, when your son turns 5, he's going to kindergarten, so you're gonna lose your piñata stick. So I thought it would be, and he was very receptive to that and became a very good client of our program, and does have a lift now that he gets into things and is farming and ranching and doing his excavation work. But that was super important in there. I mean, I could have really blown that. I've blown relationships at a kitchen table before, but that was one I was really glad that I didn't really say what I was thinking on the inside. It was like,
Yeah, that's a position Candy and I in a lot is that we know that a farmer or rancher is going to find a way to get it done. They all do. And so our thing is, even though we may be doing something that might be technically dangerous, getting on this tractor, we know you're going to do it anyway. So we're going to find a safe way for you to get it done.
And one of the things I think that is important, you know, for us to do is to try to find that safe way and to get them to keep doing what they want to do and support that and not say, no, you can't do that anymore. But there are times when, no, they can't do that anymore. There are times when we don't, they'll say, we really want to lift or something and they can't make that transfer. They can't do that. So we have to do.
A big one is this right here. I frequently have a rancher that says, God, one of the things I'd like to do is get back on my horse. There's a lot of times we cannot recommend you get back on your horses. Yeah.
We actually, you know, Craig didn't used to recommend it. Craig does now recommend it. In fact, they have a saddle and a horse. They also have even a roping bull. I think that's so nice that they got in to kind of help for some of the young men and women that come in there that want to be able to. It's wonderful. That kinesthetic therapy thing you were talking about, to be able to try to throw a rope and grab some horns. So they do that. But what we're going to talk a little bit about today is that desire we find a lot of people about still wanting to be able to ride. A lot of our folks don't do their cattle work or sheep work buy UTV or a four-wheeler, a lot of them are still riding and doing it that way. So these are just some little fun things for you to kind of think about. There's a thing called an easy up stirrup. I don't have this right now, but it's a stirrup that hangs on there and it gives you can drop it down to where you get about 6 more inches that helps that lift. And one should never, even if you don't have bad hips or knees, should ever make an extension more than 90 degrees. So when we look at our farmers and they have bad shoulders, okay, and they have bad hips and they have bad knees and they lean, if I fall down, someone pick me up. They lean way, way back and they try to hold on here with blown out shoulders and put their legs way up here and then hope that they're going to have the strength. Does that remind us of anybody? And then try to get himself into a piece of equipment, this like danger, 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 danger. So when we look at the horse with this one, we can find several different kinds of stirrups that just can attach and give you more length. Even for people who are challenged height-wise, these can be a great asset. That same cattle rancher really thought this was going to be helpful for her because she does a lot of horseback riding and she just has a hard time still getting in. So I sent her some extra information about that. I've got a couple different designs there. This is that one I just showed you. Another one, the Western, but there's a lot of places out there. So if someone says, "Oh, golly, just wish I could get my butt back in the saddle," we have some. We even have a flyer that says "back in the saddle." We really try to want to work at helping people do that. The other thing is portable mounting stations that a person can have. What I don't like about portable mounting stations, they're usually a 3 tripod type of device, and getting that flat on the ground when you're trying to get on or off can be very difficult. I mean, it's fine if you're doing it in a barn or something like that that's flat, but so I don't prefer those. Okay, just another. Our intern's from Meeker and she's a cattle woman, so she was really into to the horse stuff. I think I'm going to shift this to Jim on some gloves. If you want to do gloves pretty quick here.
Sure.
And a few things.
And a few things, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be one at Vanna White. You talk about them and I'll pick them up and show them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So,
Well, all right. Well, let's go to anti-vibration gloves. Okay, so
Vanna.
here we have in front of you for your choice, gloves.
I'm gonna have
And
you pass them around, kind of look at it, put them
Sure,
on your little hands.
gloves are actually really, really helpful things for a lot of reasons. And it's not just to keep your hands warm. One of the things that causes a lot of secondary injury or, even new injuries is tremendous vibration in your fingers, your wrists, and your hands. Just constant vibration ends up damaging the nerves, and it becomes harder and harder to be able to grip things and hold on to things and not have pain while you're doing it. So there are these kinds of gloves that they call anti-vibration gloves out there that are built in such a way that they not only provide some warmth for your hand, but predominantly they provide isolation from that vibration. So it could be on a tractor, just holding a wheel all the time. It could be just a piece of equipment that you're working with or something. And that constant vibration, if you haven't already got damage or injury, you'll have it in your fingers, your wrist, your hand. And these gloves actually help isolate, so you are able to do that with less danger and less pain.
The basic concept of some of these, the first ones that you have, those real knobby ones, you can buy a box of those for $25.
Yeah, exactly.
Real low end, wonderful. I share the story that my husband has a lawn mowing business. And with having that business, he's always on a mower or a weed whacker. And then what he was finding when he came home was that his hands would be numb and then they'd be stiff in the morning. He couldn't make that grip anymore. So he started wearing those knobby ones, and it just really extended his work, that vibration. So we're sending several different kinds. Some are men, some are women's. But this last one, these pretty green ones, these are unique. They are not anti-vibration gloves.
Are we at Impacto there?
No, I'm just, these funny ones, they are grooming gloves.
Yeah.
And why I bring them up, they're not in the slide presentation, but why I bring them up is I have a wonderful client who has horses, a lot of horses, and he boards horses. So he's always grooming his horses. And what he found trouble is holding on to the grooming utensil. He has really bad arthritis, but he also has some pinched nerves in his shoulders. And he found that after not very much at all, he would lose his grip and the curry comb or different brush would just fall out of his hands. So what this does is really, the animals really love it. His horses love it, but it just sheds the horse. So if you, horse, cow, dog, I don't know, girlfriend, I don't know. But what you can do, if you just groom him with your hands, and he just thinks the world of him. He will be in our Lamar workshop. I'm pretty excited about it because he just loves those gloves. Sorry.
No, we're good. So, there's all kinds of glove makers out there, and they all do something that will offer you, for protection from vibration, protection from cuts, your Kevlar gloves and things of that nature. So there's a whole series of gloves out there that can help with isolating your hands from vibration, cuts, heat, whatever it might be. And as Katie said, they can be a whole lot less expensive than getting a pair of special gloves that may cost you $50. And some of these gloves, you get a whole.
The Impactos do cost about $52.
Yeah, these are expensive ones.
They're really expensive.
Yeah, but they're good. They're good. Okay, now, yes. Are you doing the thing? Okay. All right, so here we have Lazy Susan. Y'all know what Lazy Susan is. And this is, yeah, and yeah, this is a Lazy Susan for Candy's butt.
You really need to personalize it. The whole concept is, you can talk about the concept, but when I turn, I don't have to turn my body. I don't have to torque my body. Most of
So you're operating a piece of equipment and look behind you, what do you have to do?
you have to turn around like that. This rotates and you can turn around this way or turn around
You
this way.
turn the core
So
stem of
it's a
your body
lazy-
instead of,
$24 low-end, easy device. It's tough in fancy trucks with the deep seats. It doesn't work there. The harder the seat, the better. And most of our farmers have like metal seats. So this is made for them, but it's very low-end device. I'm just gonna send it around. It's one of my faves. Like I said, that's like $12 at Walmart.
pretty cheap assistive technology. Yes. Yeah. I think we are too. Oh, yeah, we are too. Yeah, well, it's me. I will. There he is. Okay, good. All right, so one of the things we've talked about throughout this afternoon is this whole issue of having to reach up more than 90 degrees with your leg to get on a piece of equipment of some sort. And a relatively inexpensive way and a safe way of achieving that is through various varieties of step kits. So now you have, yeah, nice big piece of iron. It's got anti-skid jimping and marks on it, so if it's muddy or snowy or whatever, you don't tend to slide on it.
So these are all add-on. These are low,
Yeah.
well, not low end.
Low end,
$230 low end.
Yeah.
It's not like free,
Yeah.
but
So
that way.
again, bolt on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
So these are all like just an additional step, one additional step. And this is a 2 additional steps.
Yep. 2 steps.
Let me tell you
Again,
what.
bolt-ons.
We don't like these as much.
Nope.
The circumference here, a lot of our men and women, you're wearing a boot or anything like that, it's pretty big.
Yep.
You don't have enough space to put 2 feet. We preach 3 points of touch. So it's
You can't do
sometimes
that with
tough
this.
when you can only have 1 foot on something.
Yeah.
But it's better than maybe, what did we have the client you and I went to? What did he have? He had like what did he have for a step?
Well, he had a step kit like this.
Yeah.
And he cut off the bottom and then welded had his battery. on
His
it.
battery unit on it.
Yeah. But you can see, these are wide enough that you could get
Yeah.
two boots on it. As opposed to that, we only have 1.
And the other plus, as we look at,
The grab rails.
would be be able to attach a railing on it again. So that's the whole concept that we really like, is having 3 points of touch, wide enough step. And
And-
however, that step doesn't fit on all tractors. I mean, it's green, I know, but it doesn't fit on all tractors. So you have to do the research of what kind of additional step would work.
Here, let me see, well,
Sure.
don't run off. Another important thing about this is the diameter of this is big enough you could grip. I mean, we've seen some that were like a pencil, and if you've got arthritis or something, you can't really grip that. These have enough circumference, you can hold on to it.
A wonderful client we have over in Trinidad, he loved the idea of putting handles. So you saw this rebar on the thing.
Right.
So he put rebar on everything on his place, except that when he grabbed it with his very arthritic hands, what happened? He went around kind of like a kite.
And it's kind of like a weather vane.
He kind of spun off of it
Yeah.
and his grip, and it dropped him down. So what we looked at for there was just some cushioning, some foam to help him increase his grip. But that was kind of a lesson learned. He went at a workshop and he thought, oh, I'll put all my own railings on. And he did, but they didn't quite work out for him. So
But you know, you could get the foam tubing
Mhm.
and slice it down the center, wrap that around your grab rail, tape that all with some duct tape, and you get a makeshift grab rail.
Yeah.
But it cures the problem. We did that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we're talking about. You know, this guy's got the step on there that is wide enough steps that you can get both boots on. It's got big enough diameter grab rails that you can grab and hold on, so you can always maintain 3 points of contact. And it'll get this person right up in the operator station.
The newer tractors and stuff are coming out with
They
that
do. In fact,
Oh, yeah.
there's
straight from the factory.
some really neat tractors that have graduated steps now instead of ladder steps, which are wonderful. I'm trying to, it starts with an H, I can't think of the manufacturer, but those are really nice. And then they slide out of the way to get out of the way, but you can pull them and you can, just like a regular staircase. If you can still climb, that's a great
But
thing.
might I add, that those new tractors, those are $200,000 tractors.
Right.
That step kit costs $300.
And they've made them where they are adaptable
Yeah.
to the older tractors
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
because the steps were so poor
Oh, terribly.
on
Yeah.
most of the older tractors.
Yeah, but that's cheaper than buying a $200,000 tractor, to put a step kit on.
Yesterday's Tractor is a website we go to a lot with older tractors
Oh,
to
yeah.
find step kits and stuff for. So, yes.
Yeah. All right,
So these are more, this is more of a more expensive stuff. So we're kind of talking about some low end, when someone can still climb, okay? So they can still climb a step, they can still hold on to a railing. One of the first ones I showed you was a lift, but here's some more. This one is a standing lift. It's about $400. It comes from a company called Coach Lift, which is really unreliable. So I know-
$4,000.
$4,000. It's a very unreliable place. It'd be great if the only place you needed to go was an enclosed place where dirt never got. That's really not our farmers are interested.
Right.
That's one. This one over here is a makeshift where the wheelchair person can
It's a
roll up in the wheelchair and then go up to the lift and then make the transfer.
Yeah.
And he then ties his wheelchair there. So he takes his wheelchair with him. This one is kind of like creme de la creme. It's called a flatbed lift. So the lift part, thanks, Jim, is in the back where they put this big, expensive, wacky woo boom, which then can take the wheelchair and you can, it has a seat that gets you into the cab of the truck, and then you can take your wheelchair and put it back on the flatbed. The wonderful people at Volkry have helped several of our clients with that. And that bottom line, that little device, not the truck, the device, around $38,000 to $42,000 by the time you're done with it. That's incredibly expensive tool, but maybe the only way someone can get in. And then this one is really another really cool process called the bat wing. It's probably got a better name than that.
Yeah.
But the person can roll up onto a platform. Instead of the door opening like regular doors, it opens, you know, like a Batman car, fancy car. I'm sure, like, I don't know, what's a fancy car?
DeLorean.
Thank you. A DeLorean. It opens like a DeLorean, and then it raises up, and then he moves across, and he sits behind the wheel in his wheelchair. So he doesn't have to make the transfers. We really work on limiting or eliminating as many transfers as we possibly. Transfers happen with the bathroom, going to bed, those kinds of things. Those, you have to be able to do those. You're getting in and out of your equipment. We like to eliminate them.
Now,
I'm sorry.
Talking about this Life Lift. These are now, the company used to be Life Essentials. They just changed their name. to life lifts. Anyway, but looking at, it's still same company and product and everything, but you know, this is, like Kenny said, that's an expensive piece of equipment. But it actually offers people something that they can't get any other way. We do have young men right now who are running combines and farming, operating equipment because of this device. Because they can get out of their pickup truck into a chair that'll lift them up and put them, this boom will put you right into a combine. I mean, literally, push you right in the seat of a combine.
So it's designed for high profile. The gentleman I was talking about, Mr. Pinata, that's what he got, which allowed him to be able to get up as high as he needed. So basically 12, 11 feet up, 12, 11 feet or 14 feet out. The bad thing about this is if you want to use this device at the Safeway to get in and out of your truck at the Safeway, you need 3 parking spots.
That's the problem.
So it becomes, it's great in the field. It's a wonderful thing. And you know, it wasn't my job that taught me that. It was my clients that taught me that. So I'm thinking this is great. And he said, but I can't go any, I mean, I can work on my farm and ranch with it because I have plenty of room, but I can't take my only pickup truck now and go to the store or go to the grain elevator or go anywhere else because of this. So now what we talk about is where they don't have to use that big boom. That's why we'll recommend that they have a regular lift that gets them in and out of the truck. And then that big boom for the high profile.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, wow, that used to, I thought solved so many problems, but it created some others. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you
I
go.
don't have, you can put it back there. I couldn't figure out how to use it, so we're not.
That last one.
But Kenny was playing darts with cows.
It really works on, but you have, one of our cattle women corrected me on it, but it's a place where you could keep further away from the livestock and give them an injection. But there's a lot of other issues of where you can put the injection and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
which kind of, that's
yeah,
the
there you go.
process.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings me to a question, you know, what do you think is more important for Jim and I to know? Farm stuff or disability stuff? What do you think we should be the most knowledgeable about?
I think
If you-
it's 50-50.
50-50? Anybody?
You can't deal with the farm stuff if you don't know about the disability stuff.
Mhm. Okay, thanks, Ron.
Either way, you're gonna have to adapt.
Yep. Yeah, there's gonna be places where you'll have to use 90-10 on one way or the other, but still, you have to have that knowledge of both.
Yeah. Okay. You know, on my personal philosophy, and I do vacillate back that because I'm a Libra. So sometimes I see it one way and sometimes I see it another. But what I feel is oftentimes our clients don't understand their disability very well. They maybe had a spoonful of information. They don't completely get that. So for us to be able to be deeply entrenched in our knowledge of their disability and how that impacts them and get them connected with additional resources as we can is very helpful. They know their farms and ranches. They know what they do. And if I speak to someone in Eastern Colorado about something, and then I speak to someone over in Northwest Colorado, very opinionated folk over there. You go over there and they have a whole different perspective. They even call weeds different. And I have a big weed book that I used to take with me everywhere I went, but they would call stuff different. So that becomes to embrace, they know their farm and ranch work, but knowing and understanding it where I don't call a bull a heifer or
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know. I do have a little thing in my book that like tries to identify the most major cows I do. And I've only got like 3 to memory. But so, I mean, I don't know everything that way, but to know what a combine is, what a tractor is, what a swather is, what's a row crop, what's a field crop, those things are always very important. But the farmers, they know their business.
They do, but there is a problem with that though, at least in my observation. And going to that, what do you need to know, disability or farming? You know, maybe 50-50 is the right answer, but well, what I'm getting at is I have run across, and even just recently, a couple of fairly severely injured ranchers who, you know, obviously they know their ranching business, but what they had no concept of whatsoever was how to deal with the disability. I mean, they had almost no concept whatsoever. They didn't even know there was thing. I mean, I had the one very recently said, and this guy's only like 46 years old, said, I'm done. I can't farm anymore. I can't ranch. there are all kinds of tools that could help him ranch, which we're gonna deal with, but at that moment, he thought he was totally done because he didn't understand there was assistive technology that was going to allow him as a paraplegic to continue to farm and ranch.
You know, I talked about Craig Hospital, and sometimes when we go to Craig, sometimes I feel like I'm doing a little bit of ambulance chasing. You
Yeah.
know, the physical therapist or the recreational therapist or something will give us a call. We have a good working relationship, but they're still in the hospital. Sometimes they're at the very beginning stage of the rehabilitation process. Sometimes they're like a month or so before they're going to go home. But what I find, and that's important, is I tell them not to make big decisions. Don't make big decisions like, I've talked to people, they've sold their equipment. I've talked to people, they've sold their farm. I've talked to people, they've given their truck away, made decisions that they felt that they had to make. And what the Craig folks told me is that farmers and ranchers are just like their professional athletes. They rehabilitate the same way. And it's all they think about is that. And other walks of life don't. So the farmer rancher, all they think about is I got to get back to farming and ranching. I got to get back to do that. How am I going to do it? What am I going to do? Just like the athletes do. They're just obsessed with when am I going to be able to go back to that particular sport or something like that. I thought that's kind of neat along the work ethic kind of line of what we do. But
And
so if you know
unfortunately,
anybody who gets disabled or has a health issue or something like that, try to talk them not to be
right,
getting rid of stuff too soon, because it's very common decision. And sometimes it's nice and they gave it to their kids, but that's not what they wanted to do then, you know, so it's important. I apologize.
No,
Go ahead.
that's a very, very vital piece of information, because we have all too often seen a farmer or rancher who had, before he found us, who had made a decision that basically almost predetermined him to not be able to go back farming or ranching, because he sold his tractor, he sold his combine, he sold his herd, whatever it may be, and he's not gonna have the money to get that stuff back.
And you know, when you leave Craig, you got to figure out how to get out of Craig.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of them buy really crappy things like vans that you found down by the river.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because it's the only van, accessible van that maybe they could get. So sometimes you can get in there and talk about accommodations and modifications that might be better for them in the long run.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So these are some, just very simple. We find on a lot of places, you know, the gripping issues for arthritis or just old age or different types of limitations are really difficult to turn faucets on and off. And a lot of the older farms and ranches still have those kinds of faucets, don't have levered faucets. So these little devices, there's that one there. I don't have it exactly. These are really put on, they're a fulcrum. They just give you power. They, you know, they allow
Give you leverage.
the leverage, they allow you to extend that grip. Just really simple for small things. Also, on these guys, usually there's like this one little prong left of that, and then the major screw. That's all you see. So, and usually, you know, they pull out a pair of pliers, and that's how they turn it on. And they turn it off.
Uh-huh.
But these can be very helpful with just something that simple, which are just a few dollars. And then by step, this little device.
Ah, yes.
It's called a dig rig shovel, and you put it over the top of a shovel, and it broadens your,
That shovel already comes. from.
yeah, but it goes over the top of that, and it broadens where my foot can hit, which allows me to have a lot more leverage and put a lot more power. This particular shovel and the fork over there come from a company called Her Shovels, which unfortunately are going out of business. I'm so sorry to hear that. They're very nice, lightweight shovels. They're designed with this wider handle. This foot pedal can be very helpful. And these are great, but you can also make some modifications by just putting this particular device on the top. What I don't like about this device, and the OT commander in Mesa mentioned that, is these are slick. So if I would have them, I would score it.
Yeah.
You know, I would score it with a tool so that it gave me more traction. But, you know, if it's wet and your boot's wet, you can slip. But I'm just gonna have a look at that. I won't pass this big shovel around. Okay.
Well, you're gonna pass around the shovel or no?
No,
or-
isn't it? I think the next thing.
Well, the next one I think is.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'll go do some more shovels. So I'm not gonna pass it around, but I hope that maybe at the end, you might come up and think, because the weight of these is so nice. They were designed for women, and I'm kind of glad that I lost the tag on this in the last couple weeks, because some were put off that it was called a her shovel. I've actually had some guys that said, I don't want a her shovel. The design is just what we're looking at, and it's a great tool. They're very expensive. They're an expensive device, but we have both a shovel and a spade, and they're going out of business, so maybe they'll have a deal. I don't know.
Somebody else will buy them up
Good
probably.
job, Anna. Yeah, so hopefully, well, they were actually looking, there's a company we use a lot called Disability Tools. And they were asking them what they would want to pick up their product line and maybe add that to it. They're a real good resource.
We want
for
to
us.
do the shirts.
Okay. So this is personal stuff. People say, well, what about home stuff? Well, Jim and I do. We snoot around in their homes too. We look at bathrooms and kitchens, and we talk about clothing. We talk about medication. Well, this is cool. This is kind of fun, kind of. That's sexy or what? So the whole point of this is this little magnets. Some of you may have seen Velcro ones for people with limitations that have trouble with fine motor skills and buttoning. But this comes out of Kohl's. You looked it up for me, didn't you? Yeah, she did it. When I was showing it to her, it's a really nice quality shirt, very nice, very good looking. The cuffs and the front of it are just magnets. You can wash it, you can dry it. We did wonder if you could wear it with a pacemaker, didn't we?
You just can't iron.
Can't
all of
iron. The buttons.
The buttons you can iron.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat because it looks good. I have a lot of men who have problems with I just checked my fly. Have trouble with getting the fine motor of grabbing that little latch and bringing it. And I've seen people have like great big safety pins on their
Twist
pants
ties.
and stuff like zip ties, all kinds of things to try to help that process. Well, they have pants, they have a whole clothing. You said even athletic wear, I think you were looking at. Is that swimwear? So a lot of really cool stuff. There are a lot of companies that do design clothing for people with disabilities. Some of the things I've learned from my clients that are in chairs is their wives take the pockets off the back of their pants and they put their pockets on the front of their pants so they can put stuff in the front of the pants because they're sitting on their butt. So that really has been a helpful thing. So I share that when I go places because you never can have enough pockets for the things that you need, your cell phone, your keys, and everything like that. The other thing, this actually was designed for people with multiple sclerosis. This is a cooling vest, and there's places where there's little packets in here where you can put little ice packs, and it keeps you cool in a hot situation. So something as simple as I have a client who has a pretty large garden, and she overheats pretty quickly. She can wear this type of device and keep herself cooler for longer. There is some discussion about whether or not we should wear these. The thing that has to do is how well you do feel, and if you feel the coldness and whether or not you'll cause any damage to yourself. When you feel this, you'll see it's pretty insulated, and I don't think so, but that's a problem with some types of cooling vests. If you have no feeling, you can't tell when you're hot or you're really cold, so you want to be conscious of that. And this is just camping gear. Hydration is really important. And I talked about guys getting on the tractor and they stay in there for the next 14 hours. This is just a hydration test. It's got a bladder in it. You can fill it with water, freeze it, put it in here, and then have it or wear it like in the tractor or the truck. It's pretty easy. And then you can drink from it.
Yeah, like a hiking thing.
It's Camelback. Yeah.
It's a Camelback thing, but it's just like people don't drink enough. They don't keep themselves hydrated in the heat. So it's kind of a simple, this lovely color might draw attention to you, but you won't get shot. So there's good things and bad things about everything, isn't there? So, oops, here we go. And I think that's a real simple path. This really little tiny thing is called a hand grip. Any of you carry the grocery bags, the plastic bags? Any of you carry like a big bucket of grain or water or minerals? And that middle piece there, if you have trouble with your grip in your hands, it just cuts into your hands. It makes it very hard. This little simple device, you put that over where that ring is, And then it widens once again your grip, and it makes it so much easier to carry things in a bucket or carry your grocery bags or something like that.
Especially helpful in a stainless steel pail with
Yeah.
those
Very
wire
cool.
bail handles. Those
Yeah.
really fill your hands, and that really helps spread the surface area. Yeah.
And then
All right. Okay, well,
Good size.
here's another thing that we found really helpful. It's, well, it's it operates kind of like a motorcycle in a way. It's got all the hand controls up on the handlebars. But these things actually are very helpful for being able to move things, feed, manure, cleaning, trying to get things out. It'll hold 600 pounds. So you can move 600 pounds around instead of having to lift it. Wheelbarrows are fine, but especially the traditional 3-wheel wheelbarrow is very hard to maneuver. And, if you got some problems with stability, if you have some strength or grip problems or whatever, it's real easy to turn that wheelbarrow over.
Yeah.
And they're just hard to handle. And so, this, and then you have the whole issue of weight. You're probably not going to lift the 600-pound wheelbarrow into it too much. But so this will allow you to do the tasks that wheelbarrow will do, but allow you to do it in muddy terrain, icy terrain, outdoor terrain, and be able to actually move 600 pounds of product, whatever it is you're trying to move, and to be able to do that and actually get the job done without turning over the wheelbarrow half a dozen times.
we've investigated a couple different models. The older
Right.
one is kind of our one we really like now. One of the reasons is because the hand controls, it's all done with the power, like a joystick.
Yeah.
Instead of one of the first ones we started using, they had like the motorcycle thingies. And the client had grip issues and difficulties. So it was very hard one
And
to open.
the problem was the width across the from the handlebar to the handle that operated it, that was so wide that they couldn't, all they had left was a little finger on it, and they could not operate that thing.
Yeah.
My clients have affectionately nicknamed this the farmer's walker.
Yes.
And a gentleman gives great testimony to, he wasn't sure if he thought he really needed something like that. He had a big gorilla cart that he was carrying stuff around pulling, but we kind of talked him into it, and he got it. Now he says he shows it everywhere. He's going to be at our next workshop. He loves it, calls it his farmer's walker, but he really gave testimony from how much people saw how much better he was walking. So he's kind of beat up and rode hard, put up wet kind of guy. And he found that he started walking straighter and faster and better. So it was almost it wasn't the intentions, but it became a therapeutic tool for him. And he got testimony from the community, boy, you're walking so much better and quicker, and you're stepping, you're standing, and you're not all bent over. And he says it's his farmer's walker that did it.
Mobile.
Kept him very mobile.
Yeah.
It felt like he could do it. He shows it to everybody. So anyway.
Yeah. So the joystick thing makes it work really much safer, better. So yeah, we prefer this unit. She talked about mounting stations before. I think a lot of people would say that a skid steer was a wonderful tool for a farmer ranch. I think a lot of farmer ranchers would probably agree with that. You can maneuver it better, you can get into smaller, tighter places better, it lifts very well and does all that. One of the problems though with the skid steer, how do you get in the damn blasted thing? Because when you have to go in the front to get to it, there's all this mechanics sitting there in front of you. None of it is flat. It's round tubing, you step on it. If you're out in the mud, where else would you be? Mud or snow. You're sliding on those things trying to get in, so it's dangerous to get yourself in. So one of the solutions to that is a mounting platform.
Not
So-
only for skid steers, but other.
Well, obviously, it could be a lot of things, but it really is a particular answer for a skid steer that's really hard to get in and out of otherwise. The problem with it, of course, is you get in it, now you go out somewhere to do some work. What if you have to get out again when you get where you're going? That is a limitation problem. So,
I had a client just the other day told me that what he did is he dug his own
yeah,
ditch.
dug a hole.
So he made it so things were flat, but when he drove his equipment down into the hole, and then he could get out with that, at the level
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
And then he flipped that around and he didn't know how to get his cattle out of the truck. So he took all the dirt that he dug out of that hole and he made a ramp.
Yeah.
So that his cows can be unloaded and just go down that ramp.
Yeah.
And he's doesn't have any legs.
Yeah.
So, and he did that.
So, a platform is an answer, not without some limitations, like a lot of things there's some degree of compromise that takes place. But it's a good tool and it can accomplish getting into skid steer. It could accomplish getting on a horse, for example. So, or you could dig a hole, put your horse in the hole and get on it.
Can happen, okay.
Yeah, happens too. So, there's the skid steer platform, I think.
This
We're
is
to
hitching.
hitching.
Yeah, this is YouTube.
Now, everybody knows, or if they don't, should know that there's things right in here that are bad for you. PTOs, if any of you don't know what a PTO is, power takeoff, you have a tractor and you need to mow something. Well, the tractor doesn't have a mower on it per se. You need to attach one to it. But then that mower has to have power or something. So you hook it up to the PTO. There's things called implements. These are implements that go behind a tractor and you have to hook them up using a PTO to do it. We're running out of time. Okay, sorry about that. Well, I'll get to it quickly. The bottom line is, so you'll understand what I'm talking about if you care to understand it. I recommend that you do. Look up PTO video on YouTube. You will see some horrible things and understand why we're really big about having guards around our
And that,
PTOs.
show where the guard is.
Yeah,
What you'll find on a lot of places, when something went wrong, they pulled that guard
Yeah.
off.
because
So that they
they
can
got in the
work
way
on
of things. It's
something.
easier to get to things by removing the guard. And all you have to, that PTO is going around 1,000 RPMs. Or 540, depending on which one but it's going really fast. And I'll leave you to look at the videos. It is horrendous.
The design tractors nowadays are for quite a while, that once you got your butt up out of the seat, you couldn't get power,
Yeah,
would not
it
be
cut,
fed to the
yeah.
PTO. But, if you want to figure out what's going wrong with your PTO, you want it to keep working. So what guys did is they take big bricks and they set it inside the
bypass
tractor
it,
seat.
yeah.
So they could bypass that little safety issue that someone thought was a good idea. And that's where they weighted that seat down so that they could continue to do what they wanted to do.
Anyway, what we're looking at here actually, besides the fact I use this to talk about the PTO a bit, is hitching devices, a way that you can be on your equipment and be able to hitch up. Hitching often takes 45 minutes, an hour. I mean, it could take a long time to hook up some PTOs. It could be a real pain in the neck. Some of these, you can do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So there's some assistive hitching devices out there. Jiffy Hitch is one of the companies out of Florida.
This is Stay Fast. the other
Yeah,
one.
Stay Fast. So a lot of the tractor manufacturers are now making quick hitch devices as well. So these will just help you hook up easier and without getting your arms into the PTO. And I think that's
So
about it.
that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. What I hope that you got today, anything, was that AgriBility is here for our farmers and ranchers in Colorado, and we'd like to continue to be. If you know someone, let us know, or let them know about us. We do have that evaluation, if you could take some time to fill that out. And in the backer, we had some things to show you. You're welcome to come up and look at these things. But I'd also ask you in the back, just are some photos of some clients and some technology. And one of them is an OT student that's talking about safety for lifting and some stuff like that in the back. So if you have that, are there any questions of Jim or I or Chad as well that we might be able to answer or help you with today?
For some of the lifting devices and stuff, is that the expense of the customer? Or how is that?
Well, that's a great question, Dave. So what we look at is we come up with the accommodation, and this is part of our task. We come up with something that the farmer thinks, yes, that's going to work for me. And then we look at, do you have any resources to help you make that kind of purchase? I would say 9.5 times out of 10, the answer to that question is no. So we look for other funding sources, and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, as we were talking about, who supports agriculture and self-employment and as a viable vocation, both in self-employment and in the field of agriculture, may be able to come in and help with the purchase of that assisted technology. They provide guidance to the client regarding their vocational choice, and then they may help us financially. The AgriBility project itself does not have, in fact, we're prohibited to use any of our grant dollars for anything for clients. But we've mentioned we've been lucky enough to score a few other kinds of grants, and when we have them, we try to help. We have the Colorado Department of Ag has an AT little grant we have right now, and we particularly use that if clients are not eligible for the Division of Voc Rehab, they don't meet the criteria that they have, or they need something so blankety blank bad. We got to get it.
Yeah.
We got to get it. We got to get it yesterday, and won't have the time for the division to work through their process and move forward with it. So we try to limit that. But finances is one of the things that's really tough. So if anybody knows of a philanthropic organization or source or a revenue of money, we're always interested in that. We've done things like pancake suppers, the Forever Pheasants did a chili supper. We would, with that sometimes, and we've done some GoFundMe things with some clients. We haven't done GoFundMe, but we worked with clients and then help promote that GoFundMe. Something that's a big hot item is a thing called a track chair. And for someone with paralysis or really limited mobility, those track chairs can really give them a lot of accessibility. They too are super expensive. And sometimes you have to look at what's absolutely necessary, and someone may not see, a funding source may not see someone like a track chair as essential as maybe a lift to get into the equipment to actually do the job. So it's a great question. If you're loaded, we'd like to talk to you. You'll sign up here. That'd be great. Great question. I do hope some of you spoke to each other or had business cards and shared them with each other and would look at calling us anytime you thought there might be somebody or we might be able to help in some way. You are our ambassadors from this point to help us communicate this type of service or resource to other people. And I can't thank you enough for taking so much time to come be with us today. Learning more about taxes. I have to listen to that at least 3 more times. I mean, taxes, that was a hard one for me. Our behavioral health issues regarding the aging process and aging healthy. And then what is AgriBility? Because it really is a lot of things. It's not just one thing. It's kind of a ever-changing character with the people that we have on staff. Questions, concerns? Checks? Just joking. Okay. Thank you again so much. Have a good rest of your day, and please come look at this stuff in the front and the back. And we're here. What is that? Well, I'm here all week. Whatever. Yeah. Tip your tip your waitresses, and I'm here all day. Yeah, kind of, you're going to be forced that a little bit today.